We've read the WBO rules, and if they sanction unification, it can override a mandatory. There are some options to look at, and we're looking at all of them. That's a fight that will happen. It's a matter of when, not if. My initial discussion was with Al Heyman, and Al and I discussed how the lack of unification is hurting the heavyweight division over the years. We shared an identical view about the situation and agreed that unification is good. I think we would look at both options and see what Wilder would be prepared to put on the table to go to Vegas or Alabama, and conversely what we could put on the table for Wilder to come here. Then we would talk and work it out. I think the purse bid looks the most likely scenario if the mandatory is indeed the case. That's a ruling for the WBO, so I will be engaging with the WBO in the coming days and weeks to seek clarification on that process. Those are the words of Joseph Parker's promoter, the director of Duke Events, David Higgins. And he was talking about the prospect of his fighter, Joseph Parker, facing Deontay Wilder or his mandatory challenger, who at the moment I believe is Hughie Fury. So he has been in talks with Al Heyman about doing this unification with Deontay Wilder. How realistic do you think this unification is? Do you think these talks are just futile? There are some people who believe that Wilder is so protected that Al Heyman was probably just going through the motions and had no intention at all of making Deontay Wilder versus Joseph Parker. Now, it has to be said that I know Al Heyman is not officially a promoter, but let's just, for the sake of this video, pretend he's a promoter. When it comes to promoters, they like to keep all the money in-house if they can. If they've got two world champions and there is another world champion in that same division who is not promoted by them, they'd rather make the unification between the two fighters who they promote before they make the unification with the guy they don't promote. That is normally the case. There are some exceptions, obviously, but normally that's how promoters like to do it. They like to try and keep the money in-house because they're thinking about business. Now, Al Heyman doesn't have more than one world heavyweight champion right now. He's only got Deontay Wilder. So if he is going to do a unification, then it has to be outside. And Al Heyman, when it comes to his heavyweights, he's put them in tough fights for the most part. Charles Martin was one of his heavyweights who won the IBF title. He could have had him fight Deontay Wilder, and I guess this is one of the exceptions I'm talking about. He could have had him fight Wilder, but he didn't. He didn't keep it in-house. He allowed Charles Martin to go over to the UK and fight Anthony Joshua and get flattened in 2 rounds. So, will he do something similar with Deontay Wilder? Will he allow him to fight Joseph Parker? Or maybe he believes, or maybe you guys believe that because Wilder is a more valuable commodity in terms of marketability and fan base, what have you, than Charles Martin ever was, you believe Al Heyman will protect Deontay Wilder and not allow him to engage in a unification with Joseph Parker. I don't know. It's all conjecture at the end of the day. But if the fight does take place between Deontay Wilder and Joseph Parker, who would you guys be picking? I've asked you this question before, and surprisingly to me, I think the majority of people were picking Deontay Wilder. For some reason, people are not impressed by Joseph Parker's past 2 performances against Carlos Takam and Andy Ruiz, when I actually was. I thought he boxed quite well, particularly in the Ruiz fight. I was more impressed with him in the Ruiz fight than I was in the Carlos Takam fight. I thought in the Ruiz fight, he didn't run out of gas. He paced himself better, and I thought he was tactically better. It wasn't his most exciting performance, but just from a tactical point of view, I thought he did very well in the Ruiz fight, and I'm baffled as to why so many people felt as though he lost the Ruiz fight, or why people even thought it was particularly close. There was an American writer, I think it was on ESPN, or it was some big boxing media outlet, one of the really, really major ones. And he wrote an article expressing the same view as me, saying he doesn't understand how people can see the Joseph Parker Ruiz fight as anything but a fairly comfortable win for Joseph Parker. Because that's how I saw it. I don't get it. Where was it close? Ruiz hardly threw any punches. In most of the rounds, he was just stalking and throwing nothing. And Joseph Parker was doing what he was doing on the outside with his jab and little 1-2s and combinations here and there. And Ruiz was just throwing nothing. But yet people are not impressed by... I mean, look, Ruiz is a dangerous fighter with very fast hands. And a good counterpuncher on the front foot. And I think Joseph Parker handled him very well. Anyway, I'm digressing terribly here. But the point I'm making is, I rate Joseph Parker. I think he's good. I'm not saying he's the best in the world, but I think he's good. So I think him against Deontay Wilder is a good fight. I think Parker is very dangerous for Deontay Wilder. I know Wilder has got the height and reach and maybe the punching power, but Joseph Parker's got faster hands, at least at mid and close range when he lets them shots go in combination. And he's got, I guess you could say, the more correct technique. Wilder is very unorthodox, tends to get wild and swings wildly when he gets a fighter hurt, particularly. Normally when Wilder is boxing and sticking to his game plan, his punches tend to be quite well delivered. But when he hurts somebody, yeah, he gets a bit excited and all the windmilling starts. Joseph Parker is not a guy who swings wildly or windmills ever. His punches are usually very correctly delivered. And for me, in terms of big heavyweights, guys who are 6'4" and over, there is nobody in the division with quicker hands than Joseph Parker, who's 6'4" and over. So, yeah, I think the Parker-Wilder fight would be a fascinating one. It'd be a unification between the WBO champion and the WBC champion, and definitely something I would love to see. I'd be very excited for that fight. Let me know how you guys feel in the comment section below about everything I mentioned in this video. It's your boy Hatman. I'm out.